Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Guys, we have another taboo romance recommendation video. I know I just had one of these last week, but sometimes that's how it goes. They go in fits and starts of when I'm inspired for different taboo recs and when I'm not. I don't really like to force a taboo rec video. That's why there's not really like a rhyme or reason to when certain things come out. But that's just how it goes. Sometimes you're inspired and sometimes you don't know what to do. And even when there's taboo rec videos that other people want, if I'm not feeling inspired to do it, then it's not going to happen, right? Like that's just how it goes. But what I do love is when I'm thinking of something and then one of my viewers is also like, please, 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 will you give me this or whatever? And I'm like, you know what? I can make those dreams come true because I want to make that video anyway. And so that's what happened with this one. I was planning videos for November here, and the taboo I want to do today is free use. And as always, we'll have a little bit of time of learning and things up here in the beginning so that you understand how free use is alike and different from some of the other dub con or consensual non-consent things. I have mostly only consensual versions of this, but I do have a couple that I would consider non. So, if you really want it to be a completely consensual one, we have stuff. And if you like it to be a little more naughty, we got some of that too. Okay. So what is free use? This is actually a term that I only recently heard. I didn't know that it was a thing, as is so often with taboo I read, right? And I will say that one of the recommendations for this, it's a Jagger Cole, was the first time that I heard that it used. I had kind of before considered it consensual non-consent, or sometimes there's like somnophilia can fit under this as well. Those types of play where you get prior consent and then you take someone unawares for something, right? Okay, so something like that. Now, where it gets different is usually free use is going to be within a BDSM scenario of some kind, even if it's not, one of the official like dom and sub situations. Like, you have a safe word for this because even though you've given prior consent, you can still change your mind at any time, just like with anything else, right? That's the safe, sane, and consensual version of it. Or, you should be well informed on it, know which things you can do, all that stuff, whatever. I'm not here to teach you BDSM. You got to do your own research for that. But I'm just telling you the parameters in which I'm usually looking for it. So some of these books, the authors call it free use as the kink, and some of them I've included in here because I see it as it being free use or someone else suggested it as it, but it might not be being called it directly. So I will let you know which calls which as we go. So we're going to get started with the book that sparked the video, as I usually do. And then I have the rec that is the one, as I said, by Jagger Cole, and then we'll go through the rest of these. So before I dive into these recs though, if you love getting kinky, dark, historical, contemporary recommendation videos, I literally have hundreds of you to choose from. You can check out my playlists at any time if you're needing some inspiration for what to read. And if you want to know when I post new videos, you can go ahead and follow me here. Check out my Patreon and channel memberships if you want early access or extra access from me. And let's dive into these taboo recs. So the book that inspired this, and again, there was also a viewer who asked for it. They put it in my viewer recommendation form, which I do always have listed in every video. It's down in the description. It's a good ways down there, but you'll see in bold type it says recommend a video topic or recommend a book to me. Those are always available for you to enter in them. And I have recommendations going back a couple years, and it just depends on when I get inspired to do it, as I said. But literally the most recent entry was for free use, and they said, like Braving the Storm, which, yes, this is the one that inspired me to do it. So Braving the Storm comes out, if I did this right, the day after you're watching this video. This should go up on the 14th. Braving the Storm comes out tomorrow. I'll have the link available in my description if you want to go get it, as well as I will for all of these. But this is a book by Elliot Rose. It's taboo in some other ways as well. This is an adopted uncle and niece romance. I did a real deep dive on this book. Well, not like deep dive, but with more details in the last weekly wrap up that I did. So you can check that out. And just to quickly set up the scenario, and then I'll talk about the free use example within this. But our heroine and this uncle, they're definitely estranged. He's only 14 years older than her. He was adopted, obviously, into her family. She doesn't know him well. She knew him a little bit when she was a teenager, but again, he was twice her age back then. He was her adopted uncle. Nothing happened at all. He was a professional bull rider for a long time, and now he is retired, and he's a farrier. Okay, if you don't know, farrier handles the hooves and feet of horses and cows. Sometimes it depends which. And so that's what he does up on the mountain that this series takes place in. And there is a cabin that he's been staying on, which apparently is family land. And there's a cabin that's there. And that's where he lives and where his business is out of. And then we have our heroine, Briar. His name is Storm, by the way, who is, as we said, his estranged niece. The family is very wealthy. She lived in California, and her father recently died. Now, she didn't have a great relationship with her family at all, but she discovered in her father's will that she was left some land and a cabin. And it turns out these are the same place. Where he lives and where she gets land are the same. And so when she is leaving the situation that she's in, she's like, oh my gosh, let me go here. So when she arrives there, she does not realize there's someone living there right away because we'll say she's emotionally overwhelmed. Also, Storm doesn't have a lot of things. So when she walks into, yes, it's been lived in, but she's a bit of a spoiled girl. Like, we know this. It's shared. Like, she grew up with a silver spoon. Doesn't mean that it was easy because her family is shit. But she just thought there was someone who regularly checks the cabin and keeps it nice. If only to be that wealthy. So she's actually like taking a shower and warming up when Storm comes home, and he happens to think she's a buckle bunny, and so he's literally like raring to go to fuck whoever this woman is who's in his home, until she says, Uncle Storm, as he's literally like touching her. So that's the start of this book. But anyway, it turns out, like, you know, she explains most of her situation, and she's like, this was left to me. I thought I live here. And he was like, well, I'm not going to kick you out if you're hiding away from stuff. I know what that's like. I've hidden away from stuff too. And they basically come to a truce that they're both going to live there. So yeah, now they're both living there, and she's kind of sort of helps him with his work. Not that she can be a farrier, but she finds ways to help. But their attraction is way over the top, and it goes from there. So once things start happening with them, they talk, you know, a bit about the different things that they like and things like that. And it kind of gets brought up, not as a joke, but as him maybe testing the waters a little bit about a free use arrangement. Because he's like, I want to be able to touch you whenever I want. And she's like, that's hot. I'm into it. And so he gives her his cuff that he's wearing, this leather cuff, and puts it on. And he's like, here's what we'll do. You can always have a safe word. You always do. But anytime you're wearing this cuff, whether you're in public, whether we're in the truck, whether we're at home, whether we're on the job, if you have the cuff on, I can do whatever I want to you. And she's into it. So for once they get together, we do that. So like they're out to eat with their friends, and he starts touching her under the table, and she tries to slap him away, and he like grabs her wrist and is like rubs the cuff to be like, you have this on. So gonna get crazy. So that's a free use situation in there, and it's actually really like kind of fun how it happens. There's another one that's also fun that I'll get to in a minute, but it's pretty hot. So that's the one I think that a lot of people will be familiar with free use because of it. So it's also a little self-serving to get this video out in time, so once people have the book, if they're intrigued, they'll have others to read. So let's continue on. So now the one that first I realized what free use was, again, I have read it before. I'll go through examples where I have read it before, but this was the first time that I'd heard the actual like term free use used, and that was in Twisted Hearts by Jagger Cole. And of course, this one is much, much darker than Braving the Storm. Braving the Storm is taboo, and it has a little bit of dark in it, but it's not anywhere near these. These are mafia romance. And this one, it's been a long time. What's the name of this guy? This one's Ellie and Gavin. Okay, so I think Gavin is he Russian? I can't remember what he's from, but anyway, Ellie, she's a part of, I'm pretty positive, is the Irish family, and she ends up making a big fucking mistake, okay? Like, she's trying to initiate into this like college organization. Okay, it is Brafa. And she ends up breaking this really like priceless artifact. She's trying to get initiated into this like sorority or whatever. And she tries to steal this artifact that gets broken, and it's a big fucking deal. So she gets caught by Gavin, and a couple things happen. One, he is in a lot of trouble that she broke this, but he doesn't like tell her that. Instead, he goes about it of like, this is worth millions of dollars, and do you know what you've done? Now he knows who her family is, and he could make a big fucking deal about this, that a daughter of the, again, I think it's the daughter of the Irish, stole this from him. It could be a big deal. But instead, he makes her an offer where instead of doing that and blowing up alliances and going for it, he's going to have her work for him for 6 months. And during that 6 months, she is completely available to him in every way. So this one is much more of a coerced situation. It absolutely is. But we do eventually, like, she doesn't want to say no either, kind of thing. And in this type of scenario, and it's one we can see often in dark romance, you know, the heroine's put in a position where she's like, I want you to take it from me because I want to give it to you. But if I said I wanted to give it to you, then I would feel weird about it, right? It's like that kind of situation. So she definitely wants to give it to him, and she does. So she'll literally come to work with him every day. She's kind of doing secretary duties, but also she'll like not wear panties around the office the whole time, so he can do whatever he wants with her. And when he's on phone calls, she'll do some like cock warming for him and things like that, right? So very, very hot. This is one of my favorite Jagger Coles. I hate to say it. Vicious Hearts and Twisted Hearts are like my two favorites from him, and that one definitely has that in it for sure. Okay, now we have one that's more fun as well. So this next one, A Box for Safekeeping, is actually a fan fiction. Now, I just recently did, or am doing, a fan fiction readathon with some of my friends, and so I'm trying to read as many fan fictions as I can. And one of these this one is an arranged marriage between Draco and Hermione. I'll have the link to it down below so you can get it. This isn't a super long one. I think it ends up only being like 200 or some pages, if I recall correctly. But yeah, this one is they're married, and I think it is they have to stay married for at least like a year or something. And in this scenario, Hermione comes up with an idea because she's like, I don't really want to be married to you either. I had plans, I had dreams, but we're both attracted to each other, aren't we? And Draco is honestly like, yeah, I am. And she's like, and we have to consummate our relationship and like give this a try for ministry's sake. They're going to make us. And he's like, okay, I'm listening. And she's like, so how about instead of like ignoring each other and giving each other a hard time, how about we write down every fantasy we have, and we're going to put it in this little box, and then we're going to work our way through all of our fantasies in this year together. And I mean, they're both attracted to each other. They've been enemies before, but he's like, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So that's basically what this fan fiction is they've each come up with different fantasies that they have, and they act them out. And so this one isn't free use throughout the whole fic. I actually think, I know this is a fan fiction. I know it's very difficult to give people to give it a try, but I feel like this one was really good because they do a lot of different kinks within it, and it doesn't have free use throughout the whole thing. The way that this one happened is they're doing a lot of different kinks, and they decide on like a certain day that like from the whole 24 hours will be a free use day, and so Draco can do whatever he wants. And it ends up being this crazy day of edging, right? Because the point of free use sometimes is to be seen as an object, to be just like a toy for your partner during that time, which I think is super hot. And Draco just like kind of tortures her all day in a really sexy way, where like she's reading her book outside and he just comes over and flips her over and fucks her and gets off and like leaves her. So he literally ends up like edging her all day, and it's wild. Okay, he edges her like all day, and it's It's great. It's great. So yeah, highly recommend. I'll have a link to it on AO3. If you like it kinky, but you're not sure if you like a fan fiction, like I highly just recommend you give it a go. It's super easy, and it might light your fire for one. You don't know. You don't know. I'm just saying. All right. The next one we have is Losers. Now, one thing I'll say too, free use often is used as a part of a deal. You're going to see that as the pattern here. Like half of these ones are all for a deal or an exchange, because again, they most all of these also have BDSM involved or something like that, but it's usually in a trade, right? Like the heroine is trading her autonomy for safety or for forgiveness of a debt or for protection, which is why it's often in a dark romance that it's happening. But you're going to see that. So this next one, Losers, Part 1 and 2 by Harley LaRue. This one is also a reverse harem or a why choose. And it is these 4 guys who are actually bullies of our heroine in high school. She was kind of a bully too, honestly. Like, it's hard to explain. We're not going to go into full details about this one, but I absolutely love this series. But there's actually a novella, which now I can't remember it. The Rules? What's it called? Oh, if I remember, I'll put up a picture of what the novella is. But this novella came out, and this takes place like in senior year of high school. Then we've skipped ahead like 5-7 years when Loser starts, and this girl who she'd had that crazy night in that novella, she has lived a life, been away from home, and now she's back in town because some things have not went well for her. So she's back in town, and all 4 of these guys still live there. Now they're actually in like, they all live in the house together, and they're actually in kind of like 2 relationships. So they're bisexual guys, and they are kind of in 2 pairings, but they do share with each other sometimes too. So one of the reasons I love this one so much, right, is because there's lots of MM and MMF and all of the things together. Sometimes all 5 of them play together, and I love that. But what happens is she ends up, her car breaks down, and a few of them are actually mechanics, and she doesn't have the money to get her car fixed. And they make this deal with her that for, I can't remember if it's for like a month, 2 months, I don't even remember what the timeline of it is, but she agrees to, I don't think she like lives with them, but there are certain times she'll come and be available to them for whatever they want to do. And so she kind of gets passed around between all of them. Like I said, sometimes it's all of them together, and there's lots of, I mean, this duet, this series from Harley LaRue, I think is just so well done because there is a lot of sex in this. This is a 5 out of 5 spice. There's lots of kink. There's so many, like that's why this book shows up in so many of the Taboo recs that I do, because it has so many in it. But it also has a very beautiful relationship, and it's one of the best examples of a true why choose. That's a why choose in all directions, okay? It isn't just the girl who is not choosing. Like, she has deep relationships with all of the men. They have different relationships. It isn't just the 2 couple, you know, like there's so many relationships, and Harley LaRue does a brilliant job at doing that I just don't see other authors do. But anyway, so our heroine is to be free used during this time period, and it's beautiful. Like I said, it's so beautiful. Okay, I loved it. I love it. Okay, but that is another one that was a deal. We're going to keep going through those ones because, as I said, I do have 2 of them that I consider non-con, because even these ones where it's like a deal that they're making, they still are giving consent because she had another option. It's a dark romance. Like, she had another option, have the money for it, or don't get your car fixed if you don't want to be having sex with the men. Like, she knew what she was in for. And they do follow, like, she still has a safe word too. So, like, we got it going. Okay, there's also one that I just read. This was gifted to me by a viewer, and this is Bass Ackwards by Iris Adderley. And this is another one that I consider kind of fun. It was kind of silly, but I still ended up enjoying it a good amount. Like, it was fun. And this one is Christina works at this hardware store for this guy named Bill. and he's a handyman and owns the hardware store and everything, and she needs a night off, and so she asks for it, and he is straight up like, no, you can't have the night off. And she's like, I need it. And he's like, then bend over this table right here and let me fuck you. And she does. Okay, she lets him, and to her surprise, she like gets off while he's fucking her over this table. And to Bill's surprise, she lets him do this. Okay, like I said, this is wild. This makes no sense. This is a one-way trip to the jail if you're anyone else, but it's crazy. So after that single experience, that's one, he offers her a raise basically to be his for 1 hour a week. She'll let him do whatever he wants to her. So that's kind of the trade-off, is for like 1 hour a week. He'll do that. And it's actually kind of hot too, because he like, I think is it a week? Now I don't remember how, but I know because there's this time where he like banks a bunch of the hours so that he can keep her for longer. And really he wants to use that time to convince her to love him, because he really loves this girl. He just goes about it in a very interesting way. So I would consider this like a free use trade, because for that hour she'll let him do whatever, and that includes like toys, it includes semi-public situations, it includes anal. He really likes anal, she really likes anal. So there's a lot of fun stuff that they do. There's some restraints used too. So this was really hot. And these two are just completely nuts. They both are as well. It was really sweet at the end of the day, which you wouldn't think it is, but it is. Okay. Okay, now we have one, and see, here's an example of, I didn't even think about this one, right? But looking up free use, someone suggested this one, and I was like, you know, it is. It really is. And that is Hold by Claire Kent. This is another one that it's a deal. It's an exchange. This woman exchanges her body for the use of this man for protection, because it's a prison romance, okay? Now, something that's fun. I'm on Claire Kent's ARC team. I love her, adore her. And she's actually had these books recovered. So there are now hardcovers of these as well that like kind of match. Well, not like match, but that are like the Kindled series, where they have these in hardback and they look really cool. But in this, we have this woman who she gets sent to a prison planet, and it's a hellhole. There are all these men in it, and not all of them have cells. Not all of those cells have locks. And literally, as she's being lowered down into this, because there's no doors, there's only a pit that they drop the people into, basically. And then there's cells all around it. On her way there, literally the prison guard is like, let me tell you what you need to do. You need to find the baddest, assest looking man down there and ask him to be your protector and do whatever he wants. Like, literally, he tells her the blueprint. Like, he's like, that is the only way you're going to survive. So maybe seems a bit crude, but honestly, this prison guard, that's the right advice to give, you know, either be gang raped by everyone or find a protector. So right away, she kind of eyes up this guy, and he actually has a cell and a key to his own cell. Because again, they can't get out of there, supposedly, right? They can't get out. So they don't get like locked into their room. So having a lock on your room is actually like, it's important. Okay. He also has his own little tiny like bathroom in there and everything too, where everyone doesn't. So our heroine, she sees him, he's handsome-ish looking. He doesn't seem as lecherous as some of the other ones. And so she literally is like, I pick you. And he doesn't overthink it. The woman's offering to be his. He's going to take it. And so he brings her into his room and literally, like, first things first, lie down on the bed and have sex with this man while, like, people are watching through the window in the door too. So it is so wild. Okay, I know that sounds absolutely nuts, but I'm telling you, it's classic Claire Kent. Some of the first stories that she wrote, and the way that it's awkward yet so raw and real at the same time, but also very practical, because just try to imagine that. It's honestly a trade-off that people in prisons have to make today, which is awful. That is horrible. I don't want to think about, but you know, there's a reason why there's certain stereotypes of prison life that people have in their heads. But anyway, so hold, basically a free use scenario as well. Like whenever he wants sex, she will give it to him. And what is surprising to her even is that he wants her to have pleasure at all, and he provides it. But towards what the point of this story is that he also does have a plan to get out of there as well. And so she may have picked for sure the right guy to be her protector. Okay, moving along, we have this one is super fun. So Games of the Orc by Catherine Moon. So this is another one too that I didn't even think about, and someone mentioned it and I was like, oh my God, it is. Now, I wish Catherine Moon would write more books in this series. We'll see if she does. But this is the Monster Smash Agency, and it's basically a monster escort service or a monster fantasy fulfillment service, okay? So we have our heroine, Sunny, who she was in kind of this dead-end relationship, and when it ends, she decides to take a nosedive and actually do some of her fantasies because she has had, her partner didn't want to try any of her fantasies, and she has some darker type of fantasies. She wants to be treated like a slave sometimes. She wants a rape fantasy. She wants a primal play fantasy. She's interested in those. And one of her friends actually knows that she's a bit interested kind of in animals as well. And wait, that sounded wrong. Her friend knows she's interested in like monsters as well, and there are monsters in this world. So she gets recommended to check out the Monster Smash Agency, and there's this really talented orc there whose name is Kalar, and his job is to satisfy his clients, and he will like basically the agency, there's like a whole bunch of steps to go through though. Like you have to be vetted for it. You know, they go over all the fantasies that you have. There's safety things, like every so often you have to check in with them. And there is someone who, they're not watching every little thing you do, but they are like, I believe how it works is like they're listening for your safe word ever. And like if your safe word gets spoken, like it will alert that like it needs to end. Anyway, so you can be in basically this completely like safe space. So she has a whole list of fantasies. She's paid, as I said, for a whole week to be there. And so Kalar, he like plans out what he's going to do. And again, she has this whole list of fantasies, but she's just left it in his hands. She's like, you could do whichever one you want, whenever you want. I will say my safe word if it's too much, but I just want to live in this fantasy world where I'm used as a sex object and all my fantasies come true. So this one was very interesting too, because she basically like pays to be the free use of this orc for this time. So very good. There of course is going to be a bit of a twist where orcs can possibly also have mates, and you know, rule number 1, right? Don't mate with a client. That wouldn't be great. Okay, so I have another one where it is a deal. Now I have to grab my computer here. Whoa, what? The light is messing with us here. So I have a historical to share that, again, another one I totally forgot about. This is why I use Reddit, guys. Reddit knows, man. Reddit knows. I read this book ages ago. Like, let me see. Was it 2020? Oh, it was definitely further back than 2022. I think it was, okay, 2021 I read it in. And this is called The Villain. So this is a part of a series called The Villain, but there is a duet. There's 2 duets within this. So, and it's a Scottish hero, and it starts with Lady Daphne, who I think it's her father who owes some money to this guy. And so she shows up, and, or no, it's not money. She wants to get answers about something that happened. And so she shows up and wants to know, and he's like, I'm not just going to give you the answers. You'll have to pay for them. So this does have a bit of an abrupt start, because he basically makes her promise him 30 days and nights to be in his bed, to be his mistress, and do whatever he wants to do. And at the end of that time, he's going to like give her what he wants, which for him, because he wants revenge against her family. And you'll find out why. I will tell you, he may be the villain, but his reason for wanting revenge, completely accurate, in my opinion. I would want revenge as well. Would I want to take revenge against the beautiful woman who showed up here? Probably not, but again, you'll see when you read what the lowdown is, and you probably understand, right? But anyway, so yeah, so she agrees to do whatever he wants, and this is of the kinky variety in here too. So that's some good spicy times. But this one is going to be tough for some people to swallow because it's that kind of like just craziness. But I like that it's in a historical version, and yeah, it's so good. So oh, okay, I'm looking at notes. It's in exchange for $30,000 and answers. So he is paying for her as well. So anyway, that is one that she agrees to that as well. Okay, so now I have the two I said are more non-con ones, all right? So far all the ones I talked about, they're either a deal where the woman like knows what she's agreeing to before she gets into it, or the woman is even asking for it to happen because like we said, it's a fantasy, or she's asking for protection or something, right? So there's these two that I've read that I would consider them having like free use going on, but the women aren't into it the entire time it's happening. So you could also consider it just non-con straight up. But I wanted to give some alternate options, and we don't judge anyone here for what they're using it for, right? We like it dirty. So the one I want to recommend is the Twist Me series. And the reason why I'm kind of putting it with free use is because this is the one where Julian kidnaps, I think Nora is her name, and he takes her to this island, and like he is one of the wealthiest men in the world. He is an arms dealer. No like police force is going to try to stop him. He has a private island, only he can fly off and on of it, and he's taken her. He decides that he wants her, and he like attacks her and her high school boyfriend when they're like out on their own, and he takes her, leaves that kid to die, and takes her to his private island. And he goes about basically like training her to be his perfect woman. And now he does fall more in love than in obsessed with her through time, but this is not a relationship that ever has like an HEA in my opinion, right? There's a trilogy. It's one of the very first like kidnapper, like fall for your kidnapper romances I've ever read. In my opinion, in all the times I've read them, this is one of the most fucked up guys who did the kidnapping, and I don't think he changes by the end. But poor Nora, that's what she's in, and she is used by him whenever and however he wants for whenever. So there you go. There's that. Okay, then there is Killian by Natasha Knight, and this is another one that, because I think this one used to be, yeah, because this one used to be called Captive Beauty, and I think it's did her brother fuck up? Let me see. This one does have a bit more of the deal, but then it says he changes the rules and he wants everything. I think this is because I think he forces her into a marriage in this one too. So yeah, definitely a dark one, but this one was listed on it, and they said a lot of the scenes came as non-consensual. So know that going in, very dark, very heavy. I think that's kind of why too I don't still read Natasha Knight, because it's one of those where like when the heroes get too dark for me, it just kind of becomes like, I'm good, like that's kind of what ends up happening for me. But okay, so those are all the ones that I've read before. And then as always with some of these, I have two that I'm kind of interested in trying them out, and I want to share them with you guys in case you want to read them, or if you have read them and can give me some thoughts on them. Okay, so one of them is from the absolute queen and the start of kind of the dark romance genre, Kitty Thomas, and there is The Pleasure House is what it's called. So this is a series which I believe starts with guilty pleasures, and there was this bored housewife, and so she was taken and trained for pleasure of the highest bidder, and so she's not able to achieve pleasure with her husband, so she finds herself in the hands of a massage therapist who awakens her full potential, and then, as we said, gets trained to be something else. I think is it guilty pleasure that I actually have one of these on my Kindle, or I've got it before, so that's why I broke it up. But it's a whole series, and there's a pleasure house. So some of them is kidnapping, some of them is people volunteering, like, you know, all those fun times for sure. Okay, then the one that I did actually snag this one, okay? I grabbed this one and I'm definitely going to read it. Okay, I don't know when, but I grabbed this one. So this one's called Crossing the Lines, and this is by S.J. Hooks. And this one is a single mom, Abigail Winters, and she's on the verge of homelessness. So she accepts a proposition from a rich, handsome stranger. And soon she is leading two very different lives that she has to keep separate. So one in which she's the mother to her son, and one in which she caters to every needs of Mr. Thorne, both in and out of the bedroom. So their relationship is meant to be strictly business, but the lines are crossed and secrets are revealed. So yeah, this one is listed as free use. So, and it's also BDSM light is what people have it listed as. So I assume it's along the lines of free use because someone put it in there. So we'll have to see. But anywho, that is it. That's it for this video. Okay. So those are 12 different books that have free use in them. Let me know if you've read some that do this. And again, try to really think when you think about them, if it fits into not just like consensual non-consent, because as you'll know, with a lot of these ones I mentioned, it doesn't have like the non-consent part of the consensual non-consent. It just means that they can like spring it on them whenever, right? So it doesn't mean that it even has to be like force me to enjoy it. It can just be when you're unexpecting, right? Like I brought up the example of Braving the Storm when like they're sitting at the table, but because she has the cuff on, he reaches under and he starts doing things, and she isn't going to stop him unless she says her safe word, because he can do whatever he wants. And when they're driving home and he's like, I want you to put your legs up and finger yourself while I watch you while we're driving, like those kind of things. So not just the ones where he is like taking whatever he wants, right? Which again, I know I had some of those in here, but when I'm thinking of recs for them, you know, think of the examples of those where it isn't always a super forceful situation, you know, because I do have a video with the consensual non-consent in those ones, but more where it's literally like anytime you want, I am consenting. It's not just consensual non-consent where even if I fight you, take it from me. It's just, you could do whatever you want whenever, and I'm happy to do it, right? You see, like, they're kind of the same thing, but like they're not, you know? And until maybe you read some more of these on this list for me, you'll kind of see the difference. Especially the ones that aren't the dark romance ones, right? Because again, the dark romance ones, they feel more like consensual non-consent, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. I just do a lot of research and I've read a lot of books. But there are some that the authors call them free use. And so they'll use the term in the book, and that kind of helps as well. I'm pretty positive that the next book from Rhea Morris Edwards is going to have free use, I believe. Deacon, I think that was on the list for that one. Very excited for that. That'll be good. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. It means so much to me. Again, I have links to all these videos and all these books and the fan fiction down below. If you want to support my channel, please check out channel memberships or my Patreon, or, you know, it doesn't get mentioned as much anymore, but there's also just gifting to the channel straight up. That also helps out. However you want to keep me going, because this is my full-time gig, giving you kinky and spicy romance recommendations. So thanks so much for watching, friends. We'll see you next time. Bye.